This podcast is sponsored by nobody. Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now, I am so excited for today's guest because I have Marta Kristen, the gorgeous, talented actress who played Judy Robinson on Lost in Space back in the 60s. She's going to be my first cast member of Lost in Space to come on here. And I can't wait. She's had a great career. I mean, she guest starred on Leave It to Beaver, My Three Sons, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, The Man from U.N.C.L.E. She was in Beach Blanket Bingo, where she played a mermaid. She did Terminal Island, Battle Beyond the Stars, and so many others. And we're going to have a great conversation today, and I can't wait. I am just so friggin' lucky. And I just love chronicling old Hollywood and the people that I talk to on this show. Oral history, as they call it, of classic film, television, and music. And you can't get any better than that, people, because the new content is just friggin' overruling the new content. And I must stop that from happening. We must remember the classics that came before the new content. So yeah, here is my interview with Marta Kristen.
Hello.
Hey Marta, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Good, how are you?
I am spectacular. I can't tell you what a great honor this is. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you. That's so sweet of you.
Yes. So, going back in time, I know that you were adopted at the age of 5 in Norway and migrated out to Los Angeles. What age did you start officially gravitating toward acting?
Well, my parents tell me that I got off the plane walking like Charlie Chaplin in the Tramp. So they educators, they immediately saw that, there was, some tendency towards the dramatic. And so they immediately got me involved in dance and singing, and because I was considered so different from everyone in the orphanage. I mean, everyone after the orphanage. In Michigan, all the kids teased me, and I just they thought, well, let's put her in something where she like song and dance, where that won't be a problem. She's obviously an entertainer, and indeed that was the truth.
Wow, that's no better way to start than with Charlie Chaplin, I'll tell you that.
That's right. Yes, he was brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and had spoke to so many with his characters and his everyman.
Yeah, Modern Times, one of my favorite movies of all time.
Great, yes, great. So yeah,
love
Modern
that.
Times. One of the greatest movies of all time, for sure.
Sure is. So you started doing school plays and community theater and all of that?
I did. I did Willow Way Theater, and my father taught at Wayne State University. So they had a year of children's theater, so I was able to do all kinds of characters in that university theater. It was experimental, so we were playing all these different characters that old people, young people, clowns, tragedy. Macbeth was walking around going, out damn spot, how'd I say? 1, 2, I then 'tis time to do. And I think it was like 10 or something. So anyway, it was probably very funny. I loved music, and my parents were in their 50s when they adopted me. Mm-hmm. So they were very sophisticated, and they were always playing great music. And like, for instance, I would lie on the floor in the cold winter, next to the floor heater, and I would play Ravel's Bolero, and it would be meditative for me, and I would listen to it over and over and over again, and then they also bought all of the show tunes. The King and I, and South Pacific, and I memorized every single song on all of the albums, even the Student Prince. Lawrence Melchior singing, overhead the moon is breathing. Anyway, I remember all of the songs still, and it was wonderful to have that experience, that they enriched my life in the way that they did. They made it all available, and I was reading Les Miserables at 12, and every book in the house was something that was encouraged, an encouragement to read, and all of the Greek tragedies and it was an interesting childhood, and but on top of that, I was a tomboy, and I was always out. I was outside as much as I could.
Love it.
And I always played like softball with the boys, and we had 5 acres, so we had plenty of room to climb trees and just be outside running like the wind and climbing the trees. And I would buy crackers.
Yeah.
My parents had crackers. I would get the crackers and saltines and climb up the trees and just be by myself and eat the saltines. I don't know what the saltines and the trees had in common, but it was so nice just to sit up there and sort of contemplate, nature, and I was a bit of a loner, so it was, I was in my imagination a lot.
Yeah, I can totally relate. I love tomboys. I've been hanging out with tomboys my whole life, so.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
We play. We know how to play. And that my husband, and that's what, when we went to Nepal for our honeymoon, and he was a New Yorker, but he was always interested in National Geo, and I always teased him. I said, "You just wanted to look at the women's breasts."
Yeah.
and he would laugh. He'd say, "Well, you're right."
Yeah. That's a smart man there.
He's a smart man. And anyway, so we got to Nepal, and here I am hungering, down at on the streets, and for instance, in front of our hotel that we were staying in, it was just not a fancy place at all, but we were sort of sitting in front of the kitchen, or hunkering down outside in front of the kitchen, and we heard this guy, coughing, and I said, "Oh, that's our chef." And I probably was, but and he said, "Wow, I can't believe you don't mind that." I said, "Kevin, I was raised in Michigan.
Yeah.
I was raised as 5 acres, horses, and constantly running around, outside and having so much fun, so much fun. I still do that. I'm still an outdoor person.
Awesome.
You have to combine the outdoors with the indoors, and it's find a happy medium for reading and spending time spending time painting and alone time, quiet time.
So you began acting professionally while still in high school. You start guest starring on many classic TV shows. Let's talk about some. The Loretta Young Show.
Yes, that was my first show, and there was a woman that my parents knew, who was a friend of theirs, and her name was Ruth Roberts, and they connected with her when they came out to California, and she was very close to Loretta Young. And so she suggested me, although I had an agent, because I was discovered by James Harris, the producer of Lolita, who then got me an agent, and that's a whole other story. But she introduced me to a casting person for the Loretta Young show, and my first show with her was I played the daughter of two alcoholics.
Yeah.
And I had a long, like a 3-page monologue. I'm at a meeting talking about my parents, and I was invited back a couple of more times.
Yeah, I've talked to.
Later, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say I've talked to Charlotte Stewart, who was also on the show. Great lady. I love her.
Yes. I haven't seen her in a long time, but she was a peer, and we would see each other at auditions. Lovely woman.
I'm proud to say I got her to swear on here.
You did?
Yes.
Well, damn you.
Yeah. Yeah, I just adore her. Next comes Leave It to Beaver. I remember this episode very well. Jimmy Hawkins from It's a Wonderful Life plays Dudley McMillan.
Oh yes. And I wasn't Tony Dow's girlfriend. I was Eddie Haskell's.
Yes.
And yes. And I think there was some kind of jealousy going on. I don't remember the episode. I haven't seen it in years and years. But then later on, Tony and I did a 2-parter television called 4 Feet in the Morning, which was a crossover from it started on Dr. Kildare and then went over to 11th Hour.
Right.
And one dealt with the medical issues of abortion and self-abortion.
Right.
And then the next hour was dealt with the psychological difficulties with teen marriage and having a child, because the abortion obviously didn't work. But it was an interesting time. I think it was 1965 that when this was filmed, and when you think of they were still. And people were still sleeping in 2 beds, couples. Mm-hmm. So, pregnancy and abortion and really wasn't a subject that was discussed or shown or talked about, especially on family television. And so it was quite remarkable that it was even produced, produced for television. At any rate, and Tony was lovely. I was so sad.
Yeah.
When I found out that he had died, because he was a gentle, lovely man, an artist, and we had so much in common. He loved volleyball. I played volleyball. He loved sailing. I had a sailboat. I mean, I had a great husband. He had a great wife, but I just wish I'd gotten to know them better. And, throughout my life, my husband would have adored them. We had horses in Topanga, and we'd go riding, and and Tony lived there. And we could have probably ridden to his house.
Yeah.
Gentle, lovely man.
I never got to meet him, but my uncle did. He was like signing autographs at our local shopping mall back in like late 70s, early 80s. And my uncle went to him and said, "I thought you died in Vietnam."
Oh my God.
Yeah, because that rumor. Yeah.
Oh yes. The rumor of my death.
Then you did some episodes of My Three Sons. Anything stand out about that?
Well, I played Piggy, and it was Don Grady's girlfriend. It was fun because, I get all dressed up. Here I'm a tomboy, right?
Yeah.
And I get all dressed up so beautifully, and he barely recognizes me. And 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 I was so sweet. Oh, I was 16, I think 15 or 16, 16, I think, and I recently saw bits and pieces of it, and I was so cute. My voice so high, and 16-year-old.
Yeah.
Had there was a lovely innocence, and you don't have shows, the family shows like that. I guess I don't watch that much network television, but that time we only had 3 networks,
right?
And they were carefully controlled,
right?
And so you didn't get a lot of controversial subjects during that time. But I don't know which is better, frankly. I absolutely believe in freedom of speech. I just don't know how far is it before you're yelling fire in the theater? When there isn't one. I don't know the answer to that. I'm trying to. Yeah, my friends and I talk about it, but it's a difficult subject, and especially with social media being so prevalent and I mean so much a part of our lives, and I'm trying to be more active on social media because I love my fans. And I have a real strong connection to some of them, and some of them have become really good friends, and they're so appreciative and loving and kind. And like when I go to the conventions, I always feel afterwards. I feel elated. I feel loved, and I want to talk to each person. I want to get to know who they are and what they do and where they come from and how many children they have. And there's never enough time to do that. But yeah, people. That's what we're all about.
Then you. Then you do a couple episodes of Alfred Hitchcock Presents. Did you ever get to meet him?
I did. I worked with him. I was on. He directed a show that Bill Mooney and I did.
Yes.
Called Bang You're Dead, and Bang Bang You're Dead, I think. And it's very topical right now because it's about a little boy who goes into his uncle's suitcase, who's visiting him, and finds a gun. His uncle's in the FBI, and he finds a gun. And you don't know whether it's loaded or not, I think, if I remember right. Anyway, he takes the gun around to wherever he's going, and I'm the Jiffy shop girl who is handing out free Jiffy snacks. And he points the gun at me, and I go, "Oh no, come on! What are you doing? You shouldn't be doing that." And it was but the tension of, is that gun going to go off and kill somebody? And I mean, what was it? A 5-year-old or 6-year-old who shot his little sister not that long ago with a gun, killed her. I mean, again, it's all topical. It hasn't changed. How far do we go with gun control? And I mean, I think everyone should have the right to have a gun if they want to protect their home. But, there's a limit also to that. So I'm living in an interesting time. I guess it always has been, but it's more complicated, it seems. Maybe that's because I'm getting old, but I'm following it closely because I worry for my daughter and granddaughter and future, the children.
How about The Man from U.N.C.L.E.?
I'm going off on subject. I'm sorry, I'm digressing a lot, but
okay.
They all they're related. The Man from U.N.C.L.E. with Robert Vaughn,
David McCallum, who's still around.
And David McCallum, and I didn't work with him, but I worked with Robert Vaughn throughout the episode that I did, and we were at the pier And I was telling Robert Vaughn that my father was a professor of philosophy, and he was so interested. He said, "Oh, I love philosophy. You know, if I would have done anything else, I would have been a philosopher." And we talked a lot about philosophy. Not that I knew much, but it had rubbed off on me, from listening every evening at dinner time to my father's. And we always had discussions around the dinner table. No telephones, no writing, no reading. Just we talked.
Right.
And we would talk about about the meaning, purpose, why are we here? It was always a rather deep discussion.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. I mean, it was not always serious, but it was. We tried to have it. My father and mother tried to have a real discussion, and so Robert Vaughn was a lovely man who he was a very simple actor. He didn't push anything. He just had sort of this sense of sense of irony or something, and he was very direct. So it was a good, and I loved the series. I loved Man from U.N.C.L.E. That was always my genre. The spy genre that was my favorite.
That you did a Disney movie, Savage Sam, with Brian Keith and Tommy Kirk. What was that like?
Well, I was, as I said earlier, that I was raised around the outdoors and horses, and I would. In fact, my mother was not very happy about it. She didn't think it was a very ladylike to hang out at the stables, but I did anyway, and. So being outside making a Western was exciting for me. It wasn't very politically correct. Mm-hmm. The Indians were bad guys, and the settlers were the good guys, but being with people like Brian Keith. And Tommy was he was so cute. He was, we sort of had a little flirtation, and most of the time I was with the Indians and riding horses. Oh my God, it was so great. We went out to a at that time, very rural area in Los Angeles, up the coast, north of where I live, in Santa Monica, and a little bit inland, and where there were waterfalls and creeks, and so we were outside most of the time, and there was one point where the Indians had to cross the river, and they were so beautiful. The horses, the Appaloosas, and all the horses just crossed the rivers. I mean, and quickly, and I was thinking, my God, the guys who are riding these horses are really, really good. And of course, they were stuntmen and wranglers, and wranglers would get into, I guess, bar brawls in the weekend, because on Monday morning, half of them would come in with some kind of injury. I mean, they were tough.
Yeah.
and, really tough. And but they worked with me because I told them how much I loved horses. And there was one point where I had to be picked up and swung around behind the rider, I had so much fun doing that. And it felt like I was flying in the air. Mm-hmm. And of course, Walt Disney. I had lunch with Walt Disney before I did the film, and he gave his okay. And my mother was with me, and we were like, I was like speechless.
Yeah.
And he asked me a question, and I choked. I was right in the middle of putting something in my mouth, and I choked on it.
Yeah.
And my mother, my dear, dear, wonderful mother, she just kept patting me on the back as my face was getting redder and redder, and I was coughing. And she answered the question for me. But she wasn't a stage mother at all. But she was just lovely. And then, but Walt Disney smiled. He was amused, and those that memory is a very special memory to have had dinner or lunch rather at the commissary
Nice.
at the studio with Walt Disney. I met Walt Disney, yay!
Yeah.
But the movie was a nice movie. It was but it was not politically correct, and
Well, everything Disney did back then wasn't politically correct.
That's right. That's right. Many movies weren't politically correct. I mean, we always, television was full of, when I was young, very young, was full of the cowboys and Indians, and, the Indians being the bad guys, and that was, I just don't understand how they got away with that, but that changed it. That, thank God, has changed since then, and I'm very happy for that. I'm very, we needed to do that.
So was Lost in Space a standard audition for you?
I had done many television shows by then, and almost all the television shows on TV, and except for Combat, and Irwin had. I had a very excellent agent, and as I said, I was doing all the shows on TV, and so it was just natural for me to. They were looking and testing young women, and they went in to meet Irwin, and I had big dangly earrings on, and a bright in a beautiful pink suit on, and he was so impressed by that. And he also saw an episode that I did of The Greatest Show on Earth with Jack Palance and Stu Irwin, and he said, "I don't have to test anyone. I want that girl, and I want Marta Kristen." And so my agent called and said, they want you for Lost in Space. And I had read the script, of course, before meeting with him, and I was concerned because my idea was that I was going to go to New York, and I was married to a psychologist at the time, and he was going to go with me. And we were going to live in New York, and I was going to break into theater there. But I had done theater, by the way, all the way through, all the way up to Lost in Space. I was in community theater, and anyway. So Irwin kept, when I said, "I'm not sure I want to do this," Irwin called me every day for 2 weeks, and said, "Marta?" And I said, "Oh, hello, Mr. Allen." He said, "You're going to tell me you're going to do it, right?" And I said, "No, I don't think so, Irwin. I know what's going to happen. I'm just going to, I'm just going to be one of a lineup." And he said, "No. We have storylines. We have all kinds of ideas for your character, and you're going to be an actress. Having your history is that you were an actress, and you didn't want to go with your family, but then you you weren't given much of an option. Your family said you have to go, and then you started preparing for, all of this stuff. And finally, my husband said, my husband at the time said, "Oh, you have to do this." And I said, "No, I don't really want to." And he said, "What chance? When are you ever going to have another chance like that?" And he stopped talking to me for a while, and I felt really pressured. And so I said to Erwin, "Okay, I will do it." And it was a great decision. It was just a wonderful, wonderful choice. Even though it typecasted me for many years. I've met so many wonderful people because of the show. I've made really good friends. I've had opportunities to travel and to do interviews like today with you. And it's not what I had planned, but it is but it has brought me so many riches in not monetarily, but in so many other ways. So, and it, eventually I divorced, and then a year later I met somebody who I just madly fell in love with, and 5 years later we married and had an amazing relationship. And he was an attorney, but he loved everything that I loved, and he ended up being elder abuse, going into elder abuse.
Oh.
Plaintiff's elder abuse.
Yeah.
And that was his heart, that was the kind of person he was. He wanted to protect, he wanted to be a voice for the voiceless. And but we had just a wonderful, wonderful marriage most of the time. It wasn't always perfect because he was very intense, and so was I. So sometimes we clashed, which is typical in marriages. But well, not always. My parents never argued.
Yeah.
But Lost in Space eventually was a gift, and I had so much fun on the set, and they became a second family to me, and I'll never forget playing
Judy.
What was it?
Judy, duplicate Judy.
No, the duplicate Judy. Well, that was fun. Yes, I don't want any salad. It's so much fun to play a duplicate, or to play somebody, who's angry and mean, and when you're always playing someone so sweet. But since then I've done a lot of different theater pieces, and that's where I've had more of the meat of the roles that I've ever played, and I started a theater company with a small group of people called West Coast Ensemble, and that was it was voted the best theater company by NPR, small theater company in Los Angeles by NPR. And we did wonderful productions, small, again, 99-seat theaters. But you learn, and I always tell people young people who want to act, I say, it's available to you. Go and do community theater, or do the school theater. Do whatever you can to get, to learn your craft. Take dance, take voice, take a musical instrument. Because that's what you're, as an actor, you're using all of that. You're using your body. You're using your talent. But you have to create it. No one's going to give it to you, and you have to be ready, so that you have to have all that in your pocket.
Absolutely.
And to take out at any time. And so I still take dance. I take dance twice a week, and I go to the gym. I've lifted weights since I was 18. I hike every day, even now, except in the rain. I have dogs that need to go out, so we just go out up in the hills. And you have to take care of yourself and your body, and it'll help you in so many other areas as well. But
to put it in historical context of Lost in Space, sci-fi at that time, it had been like a B-movie genre that started out with the matinee serials in the 30s and 40s with Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers. Then came the B-movie genres, and now, sci-fi space shows were new to TV. This was pre-Star Trek, pre-Star Wars, which of course changed the entire medium, and a show about outer space in 1965 was unheard of. Like, what did you think about it when you got the script?
Oh, well, I loved sci-fi, but in the Isaac Asimov, what is his name? The man with Fahrenheit 451.
Oh, Ray Bradbury.
Ray Bradbury. They were my favorite authors, and had a book of short stories by sci-fi, and I just read them over and over and over again. And so when I did read the script, I thought, oh my gosh, this is great. This is about a family who has to survive only with the help of each other. And it's about the family unit. How do you, when you're out in space, how do you do that? Because you're going to have so many different challenges, and that was the pilot was written without Jonathan, without Dr. Smith, and so they brought him in realizing that they needed more tension within the story structure, the storytelling. I credit
Irwin Allen as starting the all-star ensemble epic movie, because it kind of started with Michael Anderson's Around the World in 80 Days, but I think without Irwin Allen keeping it going, Aaron Spelling wouldn't have had Love Boat or Fantasy Island, even though those are totally different genres.
I think you're right, because even though the storytelling is similar, that people have to invaders are coming in, and you have to figure out how to work the problem out amongst yourselves, and that's what I was most taken with about, and of course being out in space, and it was the beginning. I mean, I've watched. Listen, in Michigan, we had it was a small town, Farmington, when I was growing up, and we had one movie theater, and that movie theater played Buck Rogers.
Yeah.
And I would go there, on Saturday afternoons with my, for 10 cents or 15 cents, whatever it was, or 25, and get popcorn and sit and watch Buck Rogers. I loved it. And it was, it was corny, but so was, sometimes lost in space. Now we have, so many different other technical capabilities. We have CGI, and I mean, it's remarkable how different things can be presented. But if the storytelling's not good, then who cares? And at least that, I guess a lot of people like all of the stuff that goes on, but for me, it's always been what are the relationships between the people, and why does it matter?
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that in Lost in Space, and I truly think that that's what makes the difference between some of the other shows that could have been on the air, and why it was. Well, I think that's why it was so popular, and for the kids it had the monsters and the and for the teens the teenage girls and guys it had the romance and between Mark and myself and or the potential romance. Well, it never happened because CBS. I think June and Guy ruined it because they were always holding each other and looking at each other lovingly, and CBS sent Irwin Allen an urgent message saying no touching, no romance, and so that sort of crushed that potential that I thought would be a center of my character in the show, but but it had something for everybody, and the humor later on with Jonathan and the villain you love to hate, and he was always so clever and wrote these great bubble-headed booby and he wonderful lines for himself, and he worked on that, and I learned a lot from Jonathan.
Mm-hmm.
In working with someone who had been around for quite a long time and had done, as I had done, a great deal of theater, but certainly I had not done Broadway like he had done. But we became good friends.
The legendary Nathan Jorhan, who directed Attack of the 50-Foot Woman and The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad and so many great creature feature movies, directed several episodes. Do you have any good memories of him?
Nathan? I'm trying to remember. No, I don't.
That's okay. Any iconic guest stars stand out to you?
Oh, Fritz Feld and Albert Salmi and
Kurt Russell.
Yeah, Kurt Russell and give me some more.
Warren Oates, Warner Klemper.
Yes.
Strother Martin, Wally Cox, Bettina Marcus, who was in all of Irwin Allen's stuff back then.
Oh, well, Michael Rennie was my favorite.
Oh, yeah?
I had a mad crush on Michael Rennie. And he was, and I was able to sit between he and Jonathan because they were old friends. And it was a two-parter, so it was we had 2 weeks together. And it was so delightful I didn't all the time, sit between them, but at first I was just staring, and so Jonathan said, "Come meet my friend Michael," and so they sat me between the two of them, and I think they were impressed with me, but I was much more impressed with them. And they were telling stories upon stories about their careers and about their friendship. They're doing plays in New York City and all the things that a young actor wants to hear.
Yeah, Attack of the Monster Plants is your favorite episode, as reported, right?
Well, yes, because I was able to play, a bad Judy. But it was, and also it's ridiculous to say that out of 63 episodes, that was my favorite. But it's because I was able, I was given something to do, and, a character to play, aside from, the pretty young thing running around. And because I was always I was angry with Irwin for putting me in the situation where I had been told that I would be doing a lot more than I ended up doing. And and I to this day, people say, "Oh, I loved you," and you really don't have to say a lot. Especially if you're a beautiful young thing, which I wasn't aware that I was.
Mm-hmm.
I never, it's sad that you don't know how much charisma you have until you're much older and see it. But and beauty and youth and that there was a sexiness that I didn't know I had, and maybe that's what made me sexy. But so many men come up to me and say, "Oh, you were my first crush," and what an honor that is. I always say, "Thank you so much." But I had other ambitions that weren't realized, acting ambitions, which I later realized doing theater. Other movies that that weren't well known, that didn't become well known, but I had the opportunity to play, more complicated characters, or seemingly complicated.
You guys shot at the old 20th Century Fox lot. Did you see the casts of Batman, Green Hornet, and Time Tunnel there?
Oh yes, I did, of course. Yeah. And I even dated Burt Ward for a while after my divorce.
I've had Burt on. He's an intense guy.
Oh yeah, he's a nice guy.
Yeah.
I'm so admire him for his work with rescuing dogs and greyhounds, and he's it was a very quick romance, but very quick romance.
Yeah.
but it was fun for a few weeks, and I was, as I said, in between loves, so yeah.
In 1998, you and Angela had a cameo as reporters in the reboot movie. What did you think of the movie, and was the cameo fun to do?
The cameo was fun. Well, it was complicated. My mother had just died.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I had to go fly to England after we, had her services a week later. And Angela was just lovely. Because we had quite a bit of age difference on the show, we really never, hung out together. Mm-hmm. But when you're older, that 4-year age difference or whatever it was doesn't make any difference. And so she was so lovely, helping me through my grief. My mother and I were best friends, and her loss was everyone everyone goes through it, and almost everyone goes through it. So it was she was very kind and told me stories about supernatural, things that happen, and that people come back and connect, and it really was very helpful for me. So and then so when we went there, it was fun to be in England. It was fun to be going to Shepherd Studios and seeing that practically all the sets at the studio were tailored for the movie, and but I didn't think the movie was very good, and
great cast, but just was badly executed.
Yeah, and I was surprised because I'm trying to think of the writer's name, who Goldsmith. What's his name?
I'll look it up.
Akiva Goldsman. Goldsmith. He wrote a Beautiful Mind. I mean, the screenplay for A Beautiful Mind. It just they decided that they were going to make the family darker and more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
For the 90s.
yeah, the 90s, and everybody had problems and connecting, and it just, and I hated the robot, and I just, and Debbie, and they were trying too hard. For some reason, they were trying too hard. And Gary Oldman is a wonderful actor. I mean, he's one of the top actors that we have. And he could have done a lot with Dr. Smith. But for some reason, it never got off the ground, so to speak. And his character. And he wasn't given an opportunity, to be, I mean, it was a movie, but it wasn't Lost in Space.
Yeah.
So, and the TV series the same.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're my second guest from Beach Blanket Bingo. Do you remember Sally Soxy?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I had her on last year. She was like the Zelig of American International Pictures because she was in all the beach party movies, all the outlaw biker movies. I mean, she was
right.
She was always in them. Yeah. Oh my God, what was it like to be a mermaid?
I love the ocean. I love swimming. I love, so I love body surfing.
Mm-hmm.
There was a good character because she wanted to get legs. She fell in love, and Lorelai is my character. Was fascinated with all the young people on land, and so that was excuse me. So it was fun. It was fun to do it, and fun to be around all those people that I sort of knew from my beach days because I would go body surfing, and they, Johnny Fane and Mickey Dora, and they were all famous surfers, and living near the beach, it was sort of legendary, and of course there was Buster Keaton. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
Work with Buster Keaton.
Don Rickles and Paul Lynde, the God, they must have been cracking everybody up on set.
Yes. Well, I didn't work with them because it was Harvey Lembeck.
Mm-hmm.
But Paul Lynde was. I didn't do any scenes with him because I was always in the water.
Right.
But I think that there was one scene where we all were together at a party, and that was when I'd gotten my legs, and I was able to be a real human being for a very short time. But yeah, it was a sweet story, and Lorelai, of course, was taken after the Hans Christian Andersen story, The Little Mermaid, and and since then, of course, there was the one with Tom Hanks and
Splash.
And of course, the all the movies of The Little Mermaid, and
they got a new one coming out actually in May.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Annette had it in her contract. She couldn't show her belly button on screen because Walt Disney would get mad.
Oh, I know. I heard that. My husband, my late husband, had a huge crush on Annette, and it was funny. He was he was so enthralled that I had worked with her, although I hardly had any scenes with her. But she and Frankie Avalon would sort of stay in their dressing rooms when during the shoot, and. But I saw Frankie Avalon a couple of years ago,
Excuse me.
but pre-COVID at a charity event, and I went up to him and I said, "Hi, Frankie, I'm Marta Kristen." He said, "I remember you," and he was he was the same.
Yeah.
Absolutely the same man. that he had been, he was friendly and funny and handsome
the works.
Yeah, he was just adorable, and you probably wouldn't want to be called that, but
Yeah.
but he was. I think he has 10 children or something like that, so he's obviously more than adorable. But yeah, he was just so. He's a charmer. He's a real charmer.
Mm-hmm. And Bill Asher directed. I've talked to one of his ex-wives, Joyce Bulifant, very funny lady from TV.
Well, yes, I know who that is. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, Hollywood was it was a small community back then. Everybody knew each other. There was no internet.
Yes.
There was a real camaraderie.
Yes. I saw that Stella Stevens that passed away recently.
Yeah.
And I remember her, I'd see her at the studios. And she was working all the time. And, it worries me that Cindy Williams has died.
Oh, Cindy was supposed to come on here this spring, and I was so devastated. I cried for like a week straight, I'll tell you.
Oh, yeah. What a great comedian. Oh, my God.
So talented.
And you're right. It was a small community, and it was special. It was very, very special. Nowadays, that's sounding old. And I always told myself, never say that, Marta. Don't do that. Look forward. Don't look back. But it's all right to look back. Nostalgia is good. And
yep, that's what I do. That's what I do. Nostalgia.
That's it. Yeah, because people need a little bit of a breath, to take a breather and to sort of look back and say, those were days that seemingly less complicated. Although Lost in Space, we had the Vietnam War, going on, and a revolution, a real cultural revolution in everything, in art and music and movie making, and thank God. I mean, and I think you're right, and I absolutely know you're right, that people like George Lucas and the Steven Spielberg were influenced by not just Star Trek, but by Lost in Space.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very much so. And, of course, John Williams, who was Johnny Williams when he worked for us. And I just saw an interview with Spielberg and John Williams, and Steven Spielberg calls him Johnny.
Yeah.
and we called him Johnny, and he started on our show pretty much. So we were probably the biggest job. He didn't start there, but we were probably his first job, and for film, and. They were all influenced by Irwin Allen, and we're called iconic, or the original Lost in Space, but I like to think of it as the special one. The show that I tell this story about a TV critic, and a rather sophisticated TV critic who was asked by another critic, which do you like better, Star Trek or Lost in Space? And he right away, immediately said Lost in Space. And and the other critic said, why? Why would you say that? And he said, because there's an episode where Guy Williams is taken over by aliens who put this headgear on. And there's something very similar to this in the Temple of Doom, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, where he's taken over and he's supposed to kill Billy, throw him off a cliff. And Billy looks up at Guy, at Dad, and says, can I tell you just one more thing, before you do anything? And Guy looks at him, and Billy says, with his cute little face, says, "I love you." And the critic, and then Guy immediately takes off the headgear that was controlling him, and hugs Billy, and they run away.
Mm-hmm.
So, that sounds so cheesy when you tell the story, but it hits your heart, and it sinks in that what makes for a great storytelling. It's when you're moved by something, and I think that's why Everywhere, Everything, All at Once did so well, because ultimately it's about love.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite movie this year was The Banshees of Inisherin.
I didn't see that.
Movie, but it was to me, that is a masterpiece of storytelling and the human connection. And I mean, and about music. There's a great filmmaker, Inarritu, who did Birdman, the director of Birdman, and I've heard him talking about music and that music is silence is the product of music, and it's true. And that's what the Banshees was about. Was half of it was about. We have to have silence.
Do you have a good story about Terminal Island?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a good?
Well, it was the first time that I had been put. I was shot at the end.
Yeah.
And I had all those squibs on.
Yeah.
And that was exciting for me. I'd never had that done, and didn't realize that it could have been dangerous. But it was an ensemble movie, and it was. Trying to think of the name of the director. I always forget her name.
Stephanie Rothman.
Rothman, yes. And she had written the script. Mm-hmm. And, it seemed like a sort of an exploitation film.
Yeah.
But in fact, it wasn't, because the women become the warriors at the end. The women are the ones who save the day.
Yeah.
And that's important.
Yep.
Even though we're all wearing shorts and little shirts, and that we're all on an island and we're all trying to again survive, and the men are brutal, and my dog is clawing next to me. But the men are brutal, and the women are sexy.
Yeah.
But the women are the ones who end up saving the island and saving, against the bad guys, and figuring out the problem. And she had some nudity in it. Phyllis Davis is topless in it, and I think that's about as far as it went.
Yeah.
But the acting.
Barbara Lee,
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just looking at. Yeah, she connected with me on Instagram.
Yeah, I've been trying to get her on here for years. I know that she's like writing a memoir or something.
Oh, is she?
Yeah.
I have to do. Yes, I've written a children's story, which I'm illustrating.
Nice.
Yeah, but everyone tells me that I should be writing my autobiography.
I'm working on mine, so I totally get it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, it seems like overwhelming. There's so much to tell, and I've written a lot of poetry. I thought I would integrate that into it, but I don't know. We'll see. And my art, so we'll see.
It also should be noted Tom Selleck and Roger Mosley, pre-Magnum P.I. were in this movie.
That's right. It was his first movie.
Yeah.
Tom Selleck.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. And we all sit around in one of the dressing rooms,
Mm-hmm.
and we would, who is the guy who played? I've forgotten his name.
Don Marshall.
he played the guitar. He played the southern guy. Anyway, he would play the guitar, and we'd all sing, and we had a good time. Good time. It was more like play, you know.
Yeah.
But the best part for me of the movie is completely quiet.
Randy Boone, right?
Randy Boone, right?
Yeah.
Right. For me, the best part of the movie was when I'm running on a bluff, and it's so beautiful. I mean, they just had me running with my long blonde hair, and I love running. I was a runner, and it's such a beautiful piece of film, and it's short, but I don't know. I was just taken. When I saw it a couple of years ago, I thought, wow, that is really stunning, and it was just that I was running to tell the men about something, that needed to be done in order to warn them about something.
What's this movie with Christopher Mitchum you did called Once?
Yes, that was on an uninhabited island down in Mexico called Isla Espiritu Santos, and it was in the Sea of Cortez, and it was a parable, and it was about good and evil, and how they fight over humanity. It was humanity, and it was experimental, and my father called it a noble experiment.
Yeah.
My mother said, once a film you don't want to see twice.
Yeah.
But she couldn't help herself because she just loved being sarcastic. And anyway, it's a beautiful film, and it's no dialogue. It's the score is amazing, and each character has their own music, and it was exciting. I was 2 months on this island, uninhabited island, and we'd bring all of the supplies in. Not we, but the fishermen who we hired, and then on weekends they would take us back to the mainland, and we go to crazy, wild boxing matches and wrestling and and rooster fights, and I mean, and I can't believe that I did that. This completely blonde, beautiful, young woman, going to all of these dangerous places. But Chris was always with me, and he was 6'3" or something. Yeah. And so and he was a black belt in karate, and so anyway, I felt somewhat protected by him. Now he's this very conservative, political figure in Santa Barbara, of all things. Little do they know. Yeah. But I won't tell. We had a good relationship, good working relationship.
Nice. I saw Gemini Affair on YouTube the other day.
You're kidding.
It was there. You should have gotten an Oscar for it. I mean, it was a great commentary. It was sad about, wanting to be famous in Hollywood, and, it should have been a better transfer. It was taken from an old analog or whatever, but it was good seeing it, though.
Oh, thank you. Yes, that was a really good script. It was, I remember at the end I have a long, long monologue, and I contacted a friend who was very good friends with Marlon Brando, and I said, Sam, what if, I've got this long monologue, how in the hell am I going to do it? And he said, just be yourself. And that's what Marlon would say. And, so what I did was I took a long nap before I did this monologue. Yeah. And I went out I did one take, and I said that was perfect. That's it. But I understood the, it's really about love is love,
Yeah.
and how sometimes you connect with people
Right.
that because you have your own sorrows or you're looking for something that you just don't know how to resolve your life.
Right.
And yeah, the idea of going to Hollywood and becoming famous, and it's like you see all these people who who that's their great desire.
Right.
Is to, I would have loved to have worked with Steven Spielberg and all these great directors. I know I could have, would have, should have, but family came first, and that was the direction I went into after Lost in Space. So, except for starting a theater company, but I've always studied, and I continue to do so. But I still have a lot left to do.
Oh yeah.
And my husband died. Now it will be 7 years in May.
I'm sorry.
But he was such a great supporter for me. Although he got a little jealous. He would
Wow.
get jealous of the guys who, at conventions.
God.
Hey, wait a minute. I'm her husband. Thank you, Mr. Kristen. He hated being called that.
Oh my God.
But I would have loved to have done more, but
Mm-hmm.
I've got 3 films that are I'll be doing in the spring and summer.
Nice.
And one is with Vernon Wells, who is my
Love Vernon.
Actor.
Love Vernon. I've had him on, and I met him at a convention years ago. Oh my God, what a funny guy he is.
Oh, he is one of the nicest people you will ever meet.
Yeah.
He recommended me for a movie,
Mm-hmm.
and so I did a reading over Zoom,
Mm-hmm.
and the director, everybody was crying at the end of it, and so the director, said she wanted me for something else that Vernon was doing. So we went to Dayton, Ohio, and we filmed a movie together. Well, the writer and director were so impressed by our relationship, even though we didn't have any scenes together,
Mm-hmm.
but just how we got along and how we teased each other, that they have written a script for us, and it's called Remnants, and so we'll be doing that
Mm-hmm.
within the next 6 months, and it's a wonderful, wonderful, quiet story about 2 people who are older and who are beginning to feel that there were other things in their lives that they needed to do
Right.
outside of their relationship, and what are the remnants that remain of their marriage, of their very long-standing marriage, and it's interesting because I talked to the writer of this film that they did in Dayton,
Mm-hmm.
and he's the one who's written this script, and he took so much of what I told him and put it into the script.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a very personal script, and he's taken things from Vernon's life
Right.
and put it into the script. So it's almost autobiographical. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm memorizing 60 pages
Nice.
of dialogue, and but there's a lot of meat to it. There's a lot of great depth to it. They always use that the old saw is, it's like an onion. You find a character, you just peel away the layers.
Yeah. Real quick, you got any anecdotes about Battle Beyond the Stars?
Oh, Georgia Peppard and I didn't get along well.
Oh boy, a lot of people didn't. I don't know why. I mean, the guy was a hardcore, unabashed liberal. I mean, you would think he would get along with everybody.
Was he? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah.
Well, he was just very difficult, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. You know, would have been. I think he felt that maybe he was a movie star, that he was above doing a movie like this.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a great movie. It came from Seven Samurai, and I mean, I thought it was a terrific movie.
I was about 6 or 7. I turned it on and I see aliens eating hot dogs.
I know, yeah, right, and that was the precursor, to a lot of the stuff that Lucas and Steven Spielberg had done. So,
Have you read the book about the movie?
No.
Yeah.
Oh, is there a book?
The editor, Alan Holzman, I had him on here a couple of years ago. He was just finishing it. I haven't read it yet, but it's called Celluloid Wars: The Making of Battle Beyond the Stars.
Oh, really?
Yes. It's out now.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's out now. It came out at the end of 21, I believe.
Oh, I'll have to look at that. Because, we had a director from Japan
Mm-hmm.
who had only done animation.
Right.
And so I never quite understood that. That he didn't know how to work with actors. But, when you're hired, you're pretty much hired because they know that you can do it. But
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I was, my character was not, I don't know, the leader of my people, it was, I had more gravitas than I expected. And, I don't know. It was, my part was minimal compared to, everything else. So
Mm-hmm.
I was disappointed in that because Mrs. Peppard and I had a lot more to do, but the chemistry between us was terrible.
Do you remember anything about guest starring on Fame?
Oh, Fame, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do. Well, I don't remember a lot. I remember, no, I don't remember a lot about that. I just had a relatively small part in that.
Is it true that you turned down an audition for Lolita?
Yes,
Yeah.
Because my parents said no. Well, that's how I started in film. Was that James Harris, the producer, came up in a restaurant when I was 15, and asked me if I was interested in acting, and I told him I was never interested in anything else,
Mm-hmm.
which was the truth, and I was I was with a friend, and I saw them, these two men watching me, and I sort of, became animated and flirtatious, and not towards them, but, just sort of, I knew that they were watching me, and so when he approached me and told me that he was the producer of Lolita, the movie for Stanley Kubrick, I had no clue who he was talking about.
Yeah.
And I had just come from Michigan. My dad and mom took a sabbatical from Michigan to my father to write a book on Kierkegaard, and I was, so he gave me his telephone number.
Mm-hmm.
He said that I should read the book, and my parents should read the book, which we did, and I loved it. My parents said absolutely not, and so that was that. But James Harris introduced me to one of the top agents in Los Angeles, and that was, I started immediately working.
Nice.
Yeah.
I heard you say in an interview that you studied improv with the legendary Gary Austin. I am friends with all the early groundlings. They've all been on
Really?
here. I hear good and bad stories about Gary Austin.
Oh, well, Gary left the groundlings. I'm not on good stand.
Yeah.
I studied with him for years, and he was brilliant and wonderful and supportive and kind, and he was great. I had been studying Stanislavski for so many years that I was so much in my head that and I shouldn't have been. I should have used it differently, but I didn't know any better. And so studying with Gary freed all of that. Freed me from all of the this, that I had to be somebody, and I was able to create characters that were inside of me that and we worked for the Deaf West Theater, and I had the honor to work with the Deaf West Theater. That was when they were just starting, and eventually they went on to Broadway, but I think it was Oklahoma they first did. Anyway, Gary was great. Gary was, oh my God, he was wonderful. And God rest in peace. May he rest in peace. And after he passed, and my husband had passed, I decided I'd go back to studying improv, and I found out that Gary's wife, Wendy McKenzie, was teaching classes.
Right.
And so I joined her class, and after COVID sort of broke us all up, and I went back for a very short time, but there were only a few people, so we sort of broke up the class, and hopefully it'll start up again. But I'm going to. But yeah, improv. Everyone should take improv.
Oh yeah, I took drama in high school. We used to play improv games. We used to play this one, Sexy, Stinky, and Silly, which essentially you have to be any of those three, and people would take advantage of the stinky part. They would shake hands and then go, "Did you wipe earlier?" or something, and the teacher would get pissed.
Right. Yeah, no, it's just a fun time to allow yourself to do whatever you want to do, and always say yes. Just keep building and building and building. And some of the things that Gary had us doing, like being lead singer and then being a background singer, and people who couldn't sing, who said they couldn't sing, but it would be so, and crawl over each other and around and just doing, silently. Doing motions. It's stunning. It's just astounding to work with him, and I will forever be thankful that I had the opportunity to work with Gary.
So aside from those movies you mentioned that you got coming up, is there anything else? Do you have any autograph shows or anything in the works?
I have one in Toledo in October. I'm trying to get my book done.
Yeah.
And I've got the other movie. I've got the movies. I'm doing a horror movie for a friend. I play a psychiatrist, which is fun.
Love it.
And then another movie I'm doing called The Ghost Light, which is I play an older woman who is angry about her life, and she's lost a great love of her life at a theater. And anyway, it's about ghosts, and it's a really well written piece. And and I continue studying at the Ruskin Theater, the best Meisner technique theater. They do great plays. Yeah. And they want me to direct. I'm not quite ready to do that yet, but I love studying acting. I love the master class I'm with. Everybody in it is just astoundingly talented, and I get to work with older people. I get to work with young people. And there's only 16 of us in the class.
Mm-hmm.
Keep it, so that we can really work. And as I said earlier, that I say to young people, keep studying, keep working on your craft. Just do it. And, you have to. You have to. It's like a muscle memory, if your muscles are weakened and you're not using them, they're going to shrivel and you won't be able to use them. And acting is like everything else,
Mm-hmm.
You don't use it, you lose it.
Marta, thank you so much for coming on. This has been just a tremendous honor. And yes, you are not done yet. You got so much great work ahead of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate asking me, and I loved talking with you.
Absolutely. You be safe out there and have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye. Well, there you have it. Marta Kristen, ain't she a sweetheart? What a great lady. I'm so glad that we could have this great talk today. Well, she loves to talk and she's got great stories. I enjoyed every minute of it. Well, until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Later, dudes.